now it is my pleasure to welcome Reverend Paul Johnson, who will be talking with us about the celebration of the Flower Communion, which is celebrating 100 years this year.
Very good. Thank you, Beth. You know, I've titled my remarks this morning, The Message of the Flowers. And when I think of the title, I think right away of that wonderful story of the Buddha who was visiting a community, and people were anxious to hear what he had to say about enlightenment, and so they came to hear him speak, but he didn't say a word. He just held up a lotus flower. That's all he did. And people were disappointed, but some of them said, well, I get the message. And they got various messages. One of the messages that's come down through the ages about the lotus flower and Buddha was, it's the lesson that the lotus flower emerges from mucky, muddy water into beauty. The same way the human personality can grow from untoward circumstances to the beauty of enlightenment. Some, in recent times, have said, well, really the message of the flowers is the wonder of the evolutionary process, which has led to flowers, and then to pollination, and then fruit-bearing seeds, and was very important in the ongoing evolutionary development leading to human beings. That's the message of the flower, the secret ingredient that has led to us. Some would say, well, you can't really describe the message of the flowers. It's ineffable. The experience of beauty is beyond language and beyond expression of meaning, and we should just enjoy them. Well, I still ponder the message of the lotus flower, and all of these have meaning to me. But, you know, there's a particular meaning of the message of the flowers that comes to me from our Unitarian Universalist tradition. And we've even adopted, in a way, some of us, the Buddhist tradition. I have a ministerial colleague. Someone told me this story about his minister, and he said, you know, one day he came out during the time of the sermon, and he just had a flower in his hand, and he said, how many of you would like to come up and enjoy and experience this flower with me? Nobody came. And he said, the service is over. This fellow said, you know, our minister has these most interesting services. A while back, he said he was going to tell us about what he would give as a memorial service if he was giving his own memorial oration. And so there we were. He was not there. There was a casket in the back of the sanctuary. And he gave us a recorded message of what he wished his memorial eulogy to be. And then he invited all of us, by means of this tape, to gather around his casket for a time of drinks and hors d'oeuvres, which we did. And all of a sudden, that casket popped open, and he came out and joined us for drinks. And I said, that is one interesting minister. Several years later, I met him, and he followed me in one of my congregations as an interim. But what really has impressed me as the message of the flowers, of course, is the flower communion or flower ceremony, which was first celebrated in the Unitarian Church of Prague 100 years ago, the first Sunday in June. Norbert Chapek had been asked by the American Unitarian Association to go to Prague to start a Unitarian church in 1922, and he and his wife Ma went, and they gathered a group of people, and things started to grow and develop. And in 1923, the congregation had developed a good deal, and he had people from Jewish backgrounds, Roman Catholic backgrounds, agnostic backgrounds. He said, what is a ceremony that would give us our sense of community and celebrate a community. And he thought, let's everyone bring a flower representing themselves and what they bring to religious community, put them all together in a beautiful bouquet, and then each person take a flower at the end of the service, and really showing that we give and receive in religious community. We don't always know who we're giving to and who we're receiving from. And that caught on. And the Reverend from Prague, Szymonsky, says that it's the best attended service of the year. But that congregation was very successful. They grew to 3,200 members, the largest Unitarian congregation in the world. And of course, Norbert Čapek, unfortunately, was arrested by the Nazis in 1942, died in Dachau. So the ceremony each year not only celebrates the religious community, but it is a memorial service to the legacy of Norbert Čapek as well. But I found an interesting thing from these tapes at the UUA website, Beth. I'm glad you showed that piece. That was very interesting, how he brings a nettle flower because we got to accept even people that are disagreeable. I thought that very interesting. I wouldn't have a whole lot of nettles, hopefully, in our flowers this morning. But I found out that before the flower communion, they had developed a symbol for their faith, an insignia that is still there today. And you know what that is? It is two sunflowers, one taller than the other, that are rooted in the ground and basked in the sun. The sun, the sunflowers, and the soil and the roots. Now, what does this represent to you in terms, what does this symbolize in terms of a religious faith or religious community? Any ideas this morning? If you were just to see that, this is what our church stands for, what would that mean to you? Does that bring anything to mind? Farming? Community? Yes.
We get our strength
Strength from God, from the sun, which nurtures us. Friend from the earth as well. I was fascinated by that symbolism. There's a U around it, representing Unitarianism and unity, and it's on a shield. And they were firm in saying it's not a shield of war. It's a shield that we want to protect and nurture our faith. I thought that was very interesting. And I was very pleased to be able to visit that congregation a number of years ago when I was in Prague. But the flowers, the message of the flowers, of course, is that we come from many different religious backgrounds. We come from different sexual orientations. We come from different political persuasions. But yet, in terms of our core principles, our 7 principles, we form a beautiful religious community. And I must say that this is no fable. It is true in my experience. I, in my ministry, have met and my congregations and worked with people from Judaism and Christianity and Islam and Hinduism and Buddhism, and I'm sure there are many other religions that others of you have worked with and worshiped with and enjoyed in religious community. And isn't it amazing that each of these folks bring their particular tradition, to some degree, to our Unitarian Universalist values and mix. And even politically, I've known Republicans and Democrats and socialists and libertarians. Have any of you known others of other political persuasions that have been part of UU congregations? And isn't it amazing? Now, there have been a number of arguments and heated discussions over the years, but that yet these folks from this very political persuasions have found a place in religious community, represented by the diversity of these flowers before us this morning. You know, I've been so pleased at the way that all of the talents of my congregations have been employed, of all the varying talents of people, and how they've shared these in so many wonderful ways. You know, be it teaching or administration or finance or social service or social justice or hospitality or leading of worship or tending to the buildings and grounds. Did I miss any? Music, right. Oh, my, how can I forget music? Music. Anything else? So many things that are part and parcel. And of course, at times, stress is put on a congregational community and system in terms of maintaining the unity and diversity. I remember my congregation in Silver Spring, Maryland, during the sanctuary movement for Central Americans. Some people were very excited for our church to become a sanctuary for these people who were fleeing, in some cases almost certain death, to give them a sanctuary within our church of protection. And what a difference of opinion there was. I would say a majority of the people in the congregation worked to some degree with the federal government. Many of them said, well, we'd be violating our oath to, uphold the laws and the Constitution of the United States if we were to become a sanctuary church. I just said, no, that doesn't apply. And I'll tell you, it was almost breaking into open warfare on Sunday mornings. The coffee hour became a time of real pugilistic warfare. But, I said, everyone calm down. I didn't know if this was going to work. But I said, we're going to give prime time Sunday morning to at least two different sides of this issue. We're going to have several cottage meetings in homes. We're going to have meetings after church on Sunday where people can express their opinions. And before we have a final vote on this. And I said, I'm going to suggest to the board that we have to pass this by 2/3, because this, similar to the General Assembly of UUA, where a stand is taken regarding a social political issue, that it's a 2/3 vote. We're putting perhaps our time and our treasure and everything else behind us. It should be a supermajority. And the board agreed to that. And I said, I'm going to do a sermon on how I feel about this after I attend several court sessions before the immigration court to see if I feel that the federal government is violating the laws on this, which I did. I went to those court sessions. And I came out with my sermon a week or two before we were going to have the vote, that I was in favor of taking the step of sanctuary. And we had the meeting, spirited meeting, and sanctuary missed by 2 votes. And of course, some people were a little unhappy with the minister who suggested this 2/3. Some never really forgave me, but very few felt that way. But I was pleased that the woman behind the whole movement for sanctuary got up and made a motion and said, let's join the Rockville congregation in support of this woman who's escaping from El Salvador because her husband was killed as a labor union leader, and she has been given status because of a well-founded ground of persecution. So let's support her and finding a place to live and finding a place to work. And we did that. And peace descended upon that congregation. And we are as beautiful as these bouquets before us this morning. But it was difficult. So religious community isn't always easygoing. It isn't always copacetic. But through the democratic process and through mutual understanding, we can have the bouquet before us. So on this 100th year of the flower celebration or flower communion, let's follow the Buddha for a little bit, okay? Let's just have a moment of silence, responding individually within ourselves to these beautiful symbols of religious community. And then I'll close with a reading I really appreciate about the message of the flowers. So join me in a time of commemoration and celebration in silence. Hear these words from Reginald Zottoli about the message of the flowers. Flowers have the gift of language. At the occasion of birth, they are buds before bursting. At the ceremony of love, they unite two lovers in beauty. At the occasion of death, they remind us of how lovely is life. For the flowers have the gift of language. They transport the human voice on winds of beauty. They lift the melody of song to our ears. They paint through the eye and hand of the artist. Their fragrance binds us to sweet-smelling earth. May the blessing of the flowers be upon all of us. May their beauty beckon to us each morning, and their loveliness lure us to each day, and their tenderness caress us each night. So may it be. Amen.
Okay. So in 1923, when Norbert Schotbeck created the flower communion, he said, "These flowers are like ourselves, different colors, different shapes, and different sizes, each needing different kinds of care, but each beautiful, each important, and special in its own way." Today, each of you brought your unique selves to our service today. We each have our own colors, our own shapes and sizes, and all of us are beautiful reflections of our community. Let us meditate and reflect on the beauty each of us brings to this community. During this meditation, I'm going to have you approach the table and take a seed and think about what you want to grow into your life and into our community, and place that seed into our communal flower pot. Each seed will grow a flower as unique and beautiful as each of you. And after planting your seed, please take one of the packets and fill up a couple seeds in that packet to take with you to grow and cultivate at your home for yourself. I'm also inspired by the video earlier, going to give you a flower at the end as well to take with you. If you brought a flower, you're welcome to bring up a flower and add it to our communal flower pot, and we can give you a different flower to take home as well. And as I said earlier, if you want happiness to bloom, you simply water the seeds. So I'm going to go.